Recorded by the host or a participant. This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, it's a dialog box.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You just have to tab a couple of times till you get to got it.
And today, hi everybody, this is Joy Brooks from Email and Coffee. Today we're actually talking about accessibility and all the glitches thereof. We're talking today with Krista, Giannak and Michael Kalberer. Both of these people have disabilities and they're going to introduce themselves to us right now. Krista, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a writer, story consultant. Oh, and by the way, I'm also a skier who happens to be blind. It's ironic that for years, I've actually been telling other people's stories and not my own story. Some people find that funny or amusing or interesting because really everyone has a story and some people think they're just boring or even ordinary. I love to help people find that extraordinary spark, that thing that makes them different, that secret sauce, and help them express that. And the irony is that people had to do that for me. Mentors had to help me find my find that special moment, because from my perspective, I'm just me. I'm just Krista. My blindness, I'm not even thinking about it most of the time until some glitch comes along that reminds me. So I often was shying away from the blindness. I would talk about it every time people would ask questions, and people would generally be comfortable with me and ask questions. However, I wanted the focus to be on me, on who I am, what I do, and how I serve others. The interesting thing is that when I started telling my story of blindness from the position of strength, from the position of adaptation and accessibility, I noticed that certain doors would open for me in different ways, and I was getting conversations. So now I use that story of how I needed to face my own discomfort with sharing a story and tell a story that I was comfortable with. I share that with clients and inspire them to find their secret sauce, embrace their weaknesses, quote unquote, from the position of strength.
Very interesting. We often forget about ourselves, and we will also assume that our lives are boring. Everybody I speak with, well, I don't want to talk about myself. There's something to talk about, but there always is. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am the owner and sole proprietor of my own company, Michael J. Kalberer Presents Inc., where I educate educators and work with licensed professionals pursuing careers where they work with individuals with disabilities. I also have I've earned my master's degree in social work from Adelphi University and a baccalaureate degree in psychology and speech communications from Hofstra, dual major, in both cases with honors. Just as Krista does, I help people find their inner strength and overcome their obstacles from a position of strength rather than a perception of deficit. It's been a long journey for me vocationally in terms of starting my company. I gave my first paid speech in 2017, realized its impact and the impact it was having on my audience, loved getting paid, and continued to slowly pursue building the business.
It's interesting. Krista was born blind. Michael, you were not.
Yes, I was, but the blindness didn't manifest itself until about 33.
33.
I was born with the same genetic condition Krista has, which is LCA10, but symptom manifestation ranged from about the age of 12, when I was labeled legally blind, which everybody attributed to my physical disability of cerebral palsy.
Mm-hmm.
There was a precipitous decline from my ability to see at night and in sunlight at about the age of 22, and then an even more precipitous decline over a 10-year period till about the age of 33 when I was diagnosed with a retinal degenerative disease called retinitis pigmentosa. And then that progressed to the point where I have very little usable vision, but I'm also a participant in a clinical trial where I received a surgical treatment using gene editing technology called CRISPR, which is slowly restoring some of the sight in my right eye.
Mhm. So it's clear that there are, just by having two guests, it's clear that you're two people with different levels of disability, and also are coming at it with different tools. You know, you're people, you have different tools, you think differently, you're going to solve problems in different ways. And this is basically the beginning of understanding accessibility. We're not only talking about people who may have no sight, they may have limited sight, they may be sitting in a window, it may be very bright, and they can't see their screen, and they may have perfect sight. It may be dark at night, they may go to dark mode, and now the web page or the email can't be viewed like it should be viewed because perhaps it hasn't been set up properly. They may be hard of hearing, they may be suffering from any type of traumatic, behavioral, there are so many different ways to express accessibility or disability. Can you,
Definitely.
Krista, can you tell us a little bit about the meaning of accessibility?
Accessibility is essentially adapting. It's essentially making everything universally designed for all. Accessibility has more to do with attitudes and the way that we approach involving people with disabilities than it does about it's as much about attitude as it is about tech, I guess, is the best way to phrase what accessibility is. It's all about getting people on board with thinking about universal needs. And what you'll notice is that when you design products that suit someone with a particular deficit or disability or limitation, very often that will translate to a better, a more usable interface for everyone.
For everyone, I think that's it's really about the bottom line, trying to provide a better experience for everyone. And
yeah, and a lot of accessibility is about the minimum stage of accessibility is simply being able to use something.
Right.
So if it's not accessible, that essentially means that I'm going to run into a hiccup where I won't be able to use a certain function at all.
right. It's like a teapot, right? You've got a teapot, it's got a handle, it's got a lid, it's got a spout. Doesn't come with instructions. It's inferred, right? Everybody, oh, you know, I pick up the teapot, I put this water in here and I pour it out of this. Okay, I got it. Nobody has instructions, but as we get technical and, you know, start adding tools that are very specific, we need to think about instructions. How do you use it? And it's how does everybody use it? You know, so how does a blind person figure out how to use a teapot? How does a person in a wheelchair figure out how to use a teapot? I mean, all of these different types of situations that most people perhaps take for granted or figure it's not important or don't even, or try to tackle, but may not know, well, how do I go about doing that? And there's a lot of back end work that can be done on the web, in an email, that can provide cues for different or various different disabilities and therefore be accessible. Michael, what is your experience with the definition of accessibility, your solutions to accessibility, helping people, work through consuming the web.
My experience with accessibility is that accessibility begins with attitude. It begins with a welcoming attitude, and I portray that welcoming attitude to people who are trying to assist me in navigating the web. I use 3 different assistive technologies, one of which was glitching before the show because I forgot to turn my speakers on after I disconnected my headset. I do not have the ability to type very quickly. So I communicate via email and work-related and social-related activities with my voice. There's a program called Dragon Plus that I use. Dragon is a voice recognition software. The computer recognizes my voice, similar to the way that Siri would recognize your voice if you were dictating a text. It will then physically type for me what's on the screen. Then I use a program called JAWS. Krista is also familiar with this program.
What's it called?
JAWS is a screen reader.
Okay,
It will read to me what's on the screen.
okay.
And then there's a program called JSay, which differentiates my voice from the electronically synthesized voice of the screen reader. So if I type "Hi Joy" in an email, JAWS will say to me, "Hi Joy." So if I'm typing a business proposal, for example, I will dictate that and be able to proofread it on the fly because the technology of the screen reader will read me punctuation and everything. Krista and I are also familiar with different companies that help the blind and visually impaired community format documents, because sometimes when I use the technology that I do utilize, and I'm changing something from a Word to a PDF or different formats, the actual margins can look differently from what I want, from how I want them to appear when the document is complete. So I'm very cognizant of sending business-related things in a Word format or asking them, meaning my prospective clients, to send me things in a format that's accessible to my screen readers. Even things like a resume for a full-time job.
Right. And speaking of those types of situations, when you're on the web and you're trying to apply for a job or you're trying to purchase something, perhaps you've got an email and the email leads you to a landing page. Krista, what's that experience like for you? What has it been? The good, the bad, and the particularly ugly?
Generally, when I'm browsing the web, sometimes I'm literally just browsing. And for me, browsing means looking through the different sections of the web page. So I'll use a command in JAWS that will help me navigate between headings, because I'll want to know the big, bold, yeah, titles, and I'll want to know what I'm reading. What is this about? If I'm just browsing. If I'm visiting the website for a particular purpose, very often I'll just search for it. I'll use a search command, a find command, and type it in. So if they don't use the word that I'm thinking of, so if they say purchase instead of buy, for example, I might not find it easily. So then there are different ways for me to look through the page. On the iPhone, I can touch the screen, touch a location of the screen, or I can swipe back and forth to move from one element to another. Let me know if I'm getting too technical, Joy.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so it's hard. Sometimes it's difficult for me as a non-visual person to describe how I use the web to someone who can't see without kind of going into detail mode. But the point I'm trying to get across is that I am looking for very specific things, or I'm browsing in a specific way where I'm looking for the headlines kind of, and then seeing what do I want to read. Maybe I'll read it kind of line by line and read the beginning of the beginning of the line, the beginning of the next line, beginning of the next line. Nope. Keep going. Oh, here it is. Here's what I want. Or I can use other commands, like where if I'm looking for, here's one that often happens. People often don't label their buttons or their images.
Right.
So I'm looking for a particular button or a particular image, and I'll never find it because it has no label. Sometimes the screen readers try to work around it, where they'll read me the URL, and I'll try and figure out from the URL what it's supposed to be.
Right.
Or they'll have some label that the programmer gave it that's not really very good. It might be but_play_BTN.
Right. Right.
So that's
Exactly.
what I get to hear. I'm like, oh, but_play, that's play now. You know,
It all
so
depends on how the
I
website
see,
developer configures the website.
What's that, Michael?
yeah,
It all depends on configuration
Right.
yeah,
of the website.
But a lot of times people don't give thought to the names of the images that they're saving. They don't give thought to any of the alt tags. It's semantics. So they're
especially
not,
in email.
yeah, they're not considering using the H1, H2, H3, H4 in order. They're not thinking of, oh, I'll put this image here and oh, you know what, it's the same information as the subject line, so I don't need to put an alt tag. So, the person who doesn't see
Yeah.
doesn't know what that image is, and it gets announced by some ridiculous, file name. And now you don't know, is this a photograph? This is important. And all it really needs to be added is something like photograph of the team.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a photograph of the team. Okay.
Yeah,
caption.
exactly. Team photo, company logo.
Company logo. Exactly.
Yeah, and
And
so
then
it's,
when the button is there, the label should be, shop now button would be helpful.
yeah, shop now. It actually should just be shop now, and then it should be coded as a button. So that I can, if it's coded as a link and I'm not looking for a link and you have 10,000 links and you want the button to stand out to me, then
It should say button.
yeah, then if it's coded as a button, it's got to be coded that way. And then it will say button to me. Otherwise, it will say link or image link or use some other term that is, or sometimes nothing. A lot of custom coded stuff won't even indicate to me that it's clickable, even though actually it is. So sometimes I'll do a lot of playing around. If I really need to get something and I need to persevere, I'll have to play around with the page to get it to work. On the other hand, if I'm not really keen on it and I'm having one of those days where I'm just not patient or I'm just not getting what I need from this website or just not finding anything I'm interested in, well, it's not working great. So I'll just move on to the next one.
Exactly.
And
And the company loses business.
businesses are losing revenue. Exactly.
Exactly.
And there are other people that this affects. It's not just someone like me who's totally blind. These issues with labels and these issues with images and custom fields and all that, they can also affect other people on other operating systems. And they also affect the way search engines interact with your content. Besides, if someone for whatever reason is on, let's say, a mobile plan that doesn't have data and maybe they're not loading all the images, doesn't have too much data, or an email account where they got their remote images turned off for privacy reasons, well, maybe they're not going to load your images. So you want to have an alternative way that they know what's going on, what they need to click, so that they can get on with their lives. Otherwise, they may just hit delete.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And we're talking about like emails that you use in a marketing campaign, like something Joyce might create. Excuse me, I keep saying that for some reason.
That's okay.
Something Joy might create for a client.
There's ARIA, which is the accessibility rich internet application specifications, right? There's ARIA that helps custom code apply rich functionality to a button that is not otherwise a button, so that you can see the link or you can see a button or things of that nature. Things that are important enough can be coded so that they're announced properly.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's as simple as basic HTML.
Mhm.
I always like to say, sometimes people will ask me, oh, what do you need? Keystrokes? Do you need a special toolbar? No, don't reinvent the wheel. People with disabilities will generally come to the web with some adaptations already done. And often the browser will allow you to enlarge the text somewhat or change. But what we really need is for you to use standard controls,
Mhm.
to not reinvent the wheel. If there's already a button that's worked for decades, don't change it up just to change the code and say that you coded something new.
Right.
Just code
Because
the
it-
existing button.
Yeah, and that's a lot of times why websites are incompatible with different browsers.
Mhm.
And when we really think about it, if we can have websites that are more compatible across the board and responsive to all different devices, then we're creating a world that's not only accessible for people with disabilities, but more usable for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, it's quicker for everybody to use.
And it really is the user experience. It's the UX, and it's for everybody. It's interesting because what was I thinking? I was thinking of basically, the div tag. So that's what I was thinking. A lot of times programmers will use a div tag. It's HTML, and it groups sections up. Generally, it's a tool. It's not a table, but it's a way to group sections up and to do things for it. So you can move stuff around. You can, make it a special color. There are a lot of things that the div tag allows. One thing the div tag doesn't allow is any type of, a presentation. So if you're looking at a web page or an email and there's lots of div tags, no tables, no other tags, the oftentimes all you'll hear is group. You won't hear what it is in the group, and group is meaningless. What is this group? Group of what? It doesn't say button, it says group. So, we don't necessarily think, we're trying to make the code, we're on our end as developers, we're trying to make the code clean enough, workable, but we don't understand perhaps the complete user experience on the other end. We don't necessarily understand that the checkbox is not close enough to the item that needs to be identified as its relationship. So that it's checked and that it says newsletter, but its newsletter is too far to the left. Those who don't see it and who are hearing that may not necessarily hear checkbox newsletter. You won't hear that.
It's got to be sequenced properly.
Right. You might hear checkbox, and then maybe something else in the newsletter. And you're like, what? How did newsletter get in there? What does that mean? And you don't know. So these things need to be really considered by the programmer so that it's logical. I mean, it's all, the semantics are logical. We speak, our verbs match the subject. We say Jane is, we don't say Jane are, because that's illogical. Are there two Janes? How could Jane are, Jane are going to the store. Jane are going, that doesn't make sense. So just for people who speak that, well, when you're creating a website, and if you're making it so that the subject and the verb don't have a relationship, you're creating the same type of a situation where your website is not grammatically correct.
That's a great analogy, Joy, that we're looking at. It's kind of like a grammar when you're looking at code.
It's kind of like grammar, and I think
and kind of like a language in the sense that if you're using the wrong word for button.
Well, it is exactly like a language.
Yeah,
that the technology is not going to pick it up if you use the wrong word.
Exactly, and the technology won't pick it up because it's not. It's the technology, the algorithms that have built it based on logic. Right? So it's
Yes.
looking for a sequence, it's looking for patterns, it's looking for things that it can understand and translate. If those patterns are not there, you know, if somebody used an H1 tag and then suddenly went into P tags and then suddenly used another H1 tag but changed it, it's not going to be helpful for the person who's using a reader, and that person is trying to scan the headlines because H1 refers to a headline. So
Yes,
you
I
know,
get a lot of web pages, especially sales pages, that like to put everything as H1 or H2. And instead of getting headlines, I have to keep reading through where the screen reader will keep telling me that it's a heading over and over and over throughout most of the page.
right.
So that's where, yeah, so it's about thinking about the context of the code. Not only does it look nice visually, and does it match, you know, does it meet, like, for example, would somebody colorblind be able to understand this and be able to find? So there are visual considerations too. And also in the code will various pieces of software and various platforms know what to do with this code. So to me, accessibility and usability go hand in hand. So when people ask me how to make things more accessible, that's what I tell them about. What's that, Mike?
Accessibility and usability should be interchangeable terms.
Yes.
Can I get on your website? Yes. Can I navigate it? No. There's a difference between accessibility and usability. Can I get on your website and purchase a product? Can I get on the Yahoo website and set my fantasy hockey lineup independently? Yes, because Yahoo's coded differently than the NFL.com website, for example, which will talk to me to let me know I'm on it, and will talk to me in certain menus, but won't talk to me in the lineup menu because of the coding being different and the computer language being different. So accessibility, can I get through the front door? Can I get on the website? Yes. Can I use it to consume your product or services? No, not in a lot of instances. For example, I can go on to visually impaired people or physically disabled people can go on to FanDuel or any of the new gambling apps and gamble easier than we can apply for jobs. Okay.
That's hilarious.
So they'd rather me develop a potentially bad habit or vice than be able to apply for a job easier.
There's more money backing the gaming site than there is backing.
Yeah, when I applied for my vaccine appointment, the place had an accessibility department because I couldn't type in the fields to click on for my appointment because it would just say field and it wouldn't let me know where I was. So they'd rather pay somebody, the government would in this instance, they'd rather pay somebody to take the appointment and make it for me or with me, because I was on the phone with them when we did it, than make the website accessible for me and hundreds of thousands or millions of blind people to be able to make their own appointments independently.
Which is a little odd, but obviously it's just bad planning. They had to get the webpage up so quickly that they figured, let's just get the webpage up and then we'll have somebody on the phone taking care of all the calls.
Yep.
And truthfully, it would not have been that difficult to have made the webpage logical.
No, not at all. It's just a simple few coding keystrokes.
Mm-hmm.
And the in proper sequence with each other.
Mm-hmm. And a little testing.
Yep.
I feel like there's a misconception among creatives and developers. I love creative people. I love talking to developers. And I feel like there's a misconception that if they use standard coding, that they can't be creative. And I'm here to say, I don't believe that's true, because it'll actually allow you to reach more people with your creativity. And there are a lot of visual designs that will meet accessibility guidelines.
Definitely, in my experience, if I may piggyback on that, that's an outstanding point. that I was going to bring up, but thank you for bringing it up. The more accessible and standard your coding is, the more aesthetically pleasing you can make your website for visuals. They're kind of going hand in hand, but there's a misnomer out there that says, oh, I got to code very specifically to make it accessible. No, you can code very basically and make it universally accessible as well.
I think that designers sometimes will get confused or confuse something that's unique, a Mona Lisa, for example. They'll want to create the Mona Lisa. So they'll try to be, I'm going to bring in color, and I'm going to bring in light, and I want to bring in some expression on her face so that people will wonder what she's thinking, and then I'll put things in her lap, and I'll make her hands, and they go on and on and on, and they really think something through, and that's art. There's no doubt about it. That's a very deep experience in art, but that's not necessarily a complete user experience, because you're going to have somebody walk past the Mona Lisa with two eyes who can see perfectly and go, oh, that's nice, and walk right over to the Pablo Picasso and stand there for whatever amount of time just because. And the point is, that's not what the internet is about. It is not art, it's communication.
It's communication, but how do images that are portrayed on websites and depicted on websites enhance or adversely affect?
Exactly. Now you put images on there, and you're going to put you'll put an image of Rodin, you'll put an image of the Mona Lisa, and you're going to explain that image. But the purpose of the internet, just like the museum itself, the museum was not built to give expression to artwork. The museum was built to house the artwork that gives expression. And that's what the internet is. It's a museum of sorts. It is the house that allows people accessibility to all these different things, whether it's words, poetry, art, purchase, education, inspiration, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things are available on the internet. To make them accessible, that's what the internet is about. It's an accessibility tool. When they created television, when they created the telephone, all of these tools were to make something more accessible to the masses.
Mm-hmm.
So that people might say, it's if I put this code, this boring code on my page, it's not helping the expression, but it is helping the expression because it's actually delivering the content to everyone. And with email, more so than the internet, with email, a lot of times design is dumbed down because it needs to be on a small device, it needs to be on a large device, it needs to be it needs to look a certain way. We don't have the ability to inject JavaScript or any coding language because email won't take it. That's considered a security risk. So it needs to be just HTML. So nothing fancy, and a lot of people get really discouraged. Oh, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll put a background image, and I'll put this, and I'll do this, and then I'll make it jump around with an animation, and they try to overcomplicate it.
Very true. Very true.
Right, and now you're getting this message with a lot of noise, right? A lot of noise, and it becomes inaccessible. It's not usable. You're getting a lot of noise. Even a sighted person, let's say I get an email, I get 5 emails in my inbox. I open the first email. It's a bunch of colors. It's a bunch of images. It's a bunch of content. It's all of these things. I feel like I have homework to do. I need to go on to the next email. And the next email has lots of open space, a header, one image, a message, and a button. Oh, okay, I'm happy now. And that's the unsighted person's experience as well. They're getting noise with all the tools that they're using to read the message or to browse the website. If it's done in an orderly fashion, there's less noise and more, it's a better user experience.
With email from me, just give me the nuts and bolts. How quickly can I access the information I need to access and reply back to you? That's it.
Exactly. How quickly can I read the message and reply back to you? And I'm, the person I'm replying to is busy, me, I'm busy, all of these things are going on. So, the content is important. When somebody gets engaged at that point, when you finally presented them with a clear way to consume your content, then we get down to what is the content, and that's sort of what Krista does. I mean, Krista's a storyteller, and Krista's the one who's telling people, tell your story. But we've got to make it so that they can hear it, see it, whatever senses it is that they are using to translate the web, we need to make that seamless experience for them.
It is a consumer experience.
It's a consumer experience. Exactly. We're consuming not only products, services, but the information on the web is getting consumed. And there's like a whole bunch of levels, and it's pretty simple stuff. It's not complex. It really isn't. Everybody tries to attack it on such a level that, oh, no, just keep it simple. That's the point. Really keep it simple. Let's present it so that it's easily consumed, easily seen, heard, or consumed at whatever levels possible. Make sure that it's navigable, that it's logical, and then you get down to content. Then you're at the level of content. But you've got to get that, before you get engagement, you've got to get whatever senses are available to consume the information, you've got to get them engaged. Those bare senses. So I'm hearing the words, I'm seeing the words, you've got to get those senses engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I think that while everyone is wondering about the subject line and the pre-header and all of these wild things, when the email is open, they or the web page is, there's a title on the web page, there's what's the mission of the web page, what's the call to action on the web page. But when the web page is open, they may have missed all of the elements and not delivered basic usability, the user experience. They may not have delivered that. And it really it is on the programmer, but it's really part of development. It really is part of development, because nobody, the people that are reviewing the content, unless there's somebody like you two on the team, the people who are reviewing the content will be looking for periods, commas. Does this sentence make sense? Does everything make sense? Oh yeah, it's great. Let's go. It's good. They're not able to see anything else. They're not saying, well, did we make sure that our alt tags are good? What happens when they go to the landing page? Is the landing page logical? Not only is it the right landing page, but it's the landing page navigable, because now we presented them with an email. That's good. We finally hit it. There's a button there, it announces itself. There's roles, so it's reading the text. There's an H1 tag, and everything's perfect. And then they go to the web page and they can't find anything. They can't put their information in the form. So Michael here gets an invitation to to schedule his COVID vaccine, and he goes to the web page and he can't figure out how to navigate the web page.
It has happened.
Yeah.
There's a practical example of it.
Yeah. So, worst case scenario, let's have a phone number front and center so that you've got some sort of a customer service experience as, you know, as a fallback. The problem these days is people don't have customer service and we go to chat.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you've got to make that chat available. So, you know, there are so many different, there's a lot of technology out to help everybody, but the shiny, you know, the shiny, the next shiny thing syndrome where everybody's jumping to the next technology when they haven't even, you know, fixed the simplest nuts and bolts. They're jumping to the next technology. They haven't fixed anything. It's really important, really, sometimes to just keep it simple.
The
Yeah,
simpler the better, actually.
would you say the simpler the better?
The more simple, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah, I've noticed so much going on where we rush to upgrade, we rush to improve things, and so we don't fix what's already been implemented.
We're not
So common.
Exactly. It's
I
very.
think we all do it on some level at some point in our lives, probably, where we just want to move on to the next thing. We're so excited to move on, and I feel like that's a lesson that we can take forward in tech and in life.
Yes.
And also the idea that so many times people, I know Mike can definitely speak to this, about how people stereotype about all sorts of disabilities and lump people in together. And yet we are all different with different needs. Even people with the same disability may give you somewhat different answers. Yeah, Mike.
Krista and I have the same diagnosis or label of our disability. We live with the same genetic condition, LCA10. But for Krista, it manifested at a much earlier age and much more precipitously than it did for me. So when I work with Krista or individuals that may have a limitation or may not, I'm always trying to join them where they're at from a position of strength. And it's just a matter of, we all have messages to get across, we all have stories to tell. How do I get the person comfortable enough with me to tell their story? And how do I get comfortable enough with them to make it an exchange where we're talking with each other and not at each other or over each other? And sometimes if you look at website consumption and accessibility versus usability, you can take that from a physical standpoint, like, okay, are the doors 36 inches wide in a place of business? Yes. Okay, but can I use the bathroom? No. That's why I was bringing up the example of Yahoo versus NFL.com or Peacock versus other streaming services for TV. Netflix, for example. Netflix is more accessible for me than Peacock is, and different things like that. But it's all about an attitude of connecting and developing empathy for somebody who wants to consume our product and services. But people will try to pigeonhole and categorize and organize. And there's a difference between categorizing and organizing for benefit of understanding versus labeling, stereotyping. To categorize me as a person who uses a wheelchair and is blind, okay. To categorize me as intellectually unable or deficient because of that, no. People will often assume that my challenges are intellectual because I cannot make direct eye contact at first. So they'll often talk to the person that accompanies me rather than me. So, and I'm sure Krista has experienced that in certain contexts as well, to the point where we'll do things we need to do to get attention and say, hey, I'm your patient, or hey, I'm the consumer of your website. For example, I'm trying to buy Islander tickets. I'm a huge hockey fan. They have a new arena. The website is accessible to a certain point. It brings me to its seating chart. The Islander website at UVS Arena has a little bit more accessibility than Madison Square Gardens does. So it gets me to the point where I want to buy the tickets. I click on the seat. seating chart. Somebody with sight kind of describes to me, okay, you're about 22 rows off the ice in the back of the first deck. In most cases where the wheelchair accessible seats are, because I do use a wheelchair, they're in the back of the first deck. The difference between UVS's website versus Madison Square Garden's website, UVS's website will say to me, raised platform. That means I'm above the back of the, or even with the back of the seat of the row in front of me. So if people stand up, I can see over them. Madison Square Garden's website doesn't tell me that. Okay, so I go to the UVS Arena, contact us, get a number of somebody who's dealt with people with disabilities before. Madison Square Garden does a great job of this too. They have accessibility departments and people who will help you purchase wheelchair seats. But I can ask them, I want to be by the right side face-off circle behind the goal the Islanders shoot at twice. Do you have seats available here? Your seating chart is saying yes. Is that true? And the person can within 10 seconds say, yes, you did access our seating chart correctly. Those seats are available.
Yeah, sometimes there's nothing like being there, being available for your customers in case they have some need that you didn't anticipate, right?
The most important ability is availability.
I
Yeah.
like
Be
that.
available for people.
Yeah. You know, unfortunately, these days, a lot of companies, that's the last thing they want to pay for. So customer service sometimes lacks. They'll use a chat, they'll go overseas, they'll do a lot of things that will take expense off of that item. And that's almost, customer services is priceless. You lose customer service, you lose.
And I know
That's
we're
one.
preaching to the choir, Joy, because I know a lot of people who check out this video podcast are people who do value customer service. And I hope this encourages them to keep up the good work.
And to even further value it. What I'm most proud of about each of our respective companies, Krista, is if you're trying to reach us, you reach us. You get us. And we'll help you deal with your issues and accommodate your needs. And give you darn good products too.
I think that people try to buy other people to sell their products on the internet. So as a job, what do? Oh, I talk about this product and it's really great. Well, you don't have to buy people. All you need to do is be there for them. And if you have a good product, people are going to love your product. You don't have to pay for somebody on social to talk about a product.
And along those lines, to bring it back full circle to the concept of accessibility and usability. If Krista and I have a good experience at a website, on a venue, on a platform, we'll tell 50 of our friends, and that company will potentially gain more business.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
Well, and I've always said that is the point. That is the point. It's word of mouth is going to sell you products wildly.
Joy, I just want to bring up one point that we're kind of doing a good job of getting to, but we're kind of not fully getting to. Compliance is a legal term, but also compliance is an attitudinal concept too, as is accessibility.
Right.
It's all about people's attitudes. And if we have an attitude of, let me make this work, versus an attitude of, I have to make this work because I'm not going to comply with regulations.
Right.
If I don't. The open attitude of let's make this work is going to open up dialogues for businesses and dialogues for consumption of service or product, rather than, oh my gosh, I have to do this.
Right.
These people, there's only 10,000 blind people in New York. And I'm using that number as a general, please don't think that number is a statistic.
Okay.
Why am I only doing this for X number of percentage of my potential revenue stream? you're doing it for everybody. You're not doing it just to meet the needs of one potential revenue stream.
Right, right.
That's the concept of universal. Universal means available to everybody. Design.
It seems to be so logical, that concept. It's like, if you've got a mission statement, if you've got a goal, if you've got a product that solves a problem or fits a need or whatever, you would think you're trying to get it out there and you're going to make that experience as easy as possible because you're saying this is such a great product. You're not thinking along the lines, how do I make this square thing fit into a round hole? You can't. That's not what you're trying to do. You're not trying to invent that. You've got a round peg and you think this round peg is the greatest thing in the world. Then you find all those round holes and you work with it. It's that simple. Right? When you got the square, when you got the square or whatever other product that you have that fits other needs and goals, that's your audience. You're not trying to get unfortunately, in some cases, you just want to get your competition away and to your product just to sell more. But that in the end is not going to provide you with it's not going to be sustainable. Because if you're stealing somebody else's audience, then someone else is going to steal yours. It's called karma. It will happen.
In business and in life, you don't have to disparage others to make yourself better.
Exactly. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. If Kleenex works, people are going to buy Kleenex. Everyone else is going to come up with a tissue that works. They're all going to work. But if Kleenex is the nicest, softest, smells nice, it's going to sell. Period. And the fact that the word is Kleenex and we all refer to it as Kleenex and Xerox and all those words that are actually brands, it proves the fact that Kleenex is queen. So you come up with a plan, and it really is all about honesty. It's about a true mission. It's about people, people, not the bottom line, people. A company might say, oh, we're doing really well. We made a lot of money. But the truth is you're doing really well. You're servicing a lot of people. And that's the concept. But sometimes we miss that mark. We forget the people mark. We forget we're marketing to people. We have to be reminded that we're marketing to people. It's not an inbox we're trying to get into. It's not a home that we're trying to get into. We're trying to get into the inbox so that a person can read the email. We're trying to get onto the display into somebody's home so that they can browse your goods or get inspired by your writing or, all of those things. We forget that there are people behind those devices. A bit of a warning, and it's logical. You'd say, oh, everybody's going to say, oh, no, we know that. Oh, of course we know that. But we forget. We forget a lot. Because somebody will say, we'll have a writer write something that hits home. We'll have a developer or a designer that makes a very utilitarian and user simple experience or a good user experience. We'll have all of these things, and then the CEO or the marketing ops or someone looks at it and goes, well, what happened to all of these things that we wanted to be in there? You're like, well, we took them out because X, Y, and Z. No, put them back in there. And it's all about ego. It's only about their ego. It's not about the person anymore. So it's, you think in many times, because I've dealt with this on many instances when I work with companies where we get something, it works, it's fast, it's good, I feel good about it. And we need to start adding back all those extra bells and whistles that are not going to help with the experience. You know, oh, I need 3 more articles in there because they're important. Yeah, 3 more, what? So have 3 more emails, you know? Don't put 3 more articles in there, have 3 more emails. Oh, don't forget to link this, and this. And let's put a header in there with navigation so that it navigates to all the elements on the site. And on the footer, don't forget to put, oh my goodness, you know, why don't you just like, you know, put the whole store in one email?
I've seen those types of emails.
Yeah. You know,
Thankfully, I don't write them.
I
try and encourage my clients when I write content for the web to use, because I have my business, Wise Words That Matter. So when I try and do that, I try and use that wise words isn't just something to say, it's part of my brand, and it's part of what I encourage people to do, to be wise with their words and to be wise with their messages, because their message matters.
Exactly. And with my website too, I've kind of fighting the battle with my content developer and myself, because they're 2 different people. I enlist the help of a content developer between putting videos on my homepage or landing page versus having separate tabs. The fear is, okay, the welcome video is up there. The fear is nobody's going to navigate the website. If they like what they see, they'll navigate the website. Can they see it clearly? Is it concise? Does it entice them? Is there a call to action? Yes. Is it simple? Yes. The simpler, the better. Yeah.
And there are always going to be these.
If they're interested in you, they're going to be interested in your product.
There are always going to be these design differences, and that's what makes the world go round. Yet what I like to advocate is that we encourage design universality, that we look at how can we incorporate our differences so that they're accessible to all.
Right. And we are going to continue to do that together soon. So,
and that's creative, and that's creative in itself.
It is, absolutely.
So you don't have to be less creative. The point is that you use that creativity to solve some other problems.
It's just about, everybody has different skills and abilities. How do I bring the best out of whom I'm working with? How do they bring the best out of me? How do our websites or conveyances of communication, websites, business cards, emails, correspondences, verbal conversation, how does that portray and enhance our images, our branding, our exposure to our target populations, our catchment areas, the people we want to serve? How can I and Krista, we as business people, all of us, have a clear and concise message that reaches the most people quickly and effectively? That's what it's about.
Right. Okay. So it's at that hour point. We've been talking for an hour. We could probably talk for another hour, but at this point, Michael, can you do me a favor? Can you share with the audience different ways for them to contact you, or where you are? Or sure, I can also print those. I can print those out in our message in the YouTube and at the end. But please share that information with us.
I'm available at Facebook at Michael Kalberer. My company URL is very long, and I attempted to send it to you on previous instances, but it's Michael J. Kalberer. My last name is Kalb as in boy ERER, and then the word presents.com. That's where my website comes up. I'll send that to you in show notes via email, and you can put it there as well, because I know the URL is very long. And I'm available on LinkedIn as well at Michael Kalberer.
Krista.
As for me, I'm available at wisewordsthatmatter.com, as well as Wise Words That Matter on Facebook, where I offer tips and tricks on how to get noticed and how to market smarter, not harder. since I am a writer and I speak about my personal story. By the way, at Mike's website, I just want to, Michael J. Kalberer Presents, I just wanted to make sure that people know what that's all about, that's about cultural competence presenting and motivational speaking to get people on board with these concepts of accessibility, with these concepts of speaking, adapting your environment and how you present to, so that it's culturally sensitive, for lack of a better word, to people of all different abilities.
And Krista and I both, Krista, your business does it through rhetoric, and I'll do it through speaking and rhetoric. We both make people aware of our abilities and try to get people to become aware of what their best abilities and strengths are. So it's just an honor to collaborate with both of you on this Email and Coffee podcast. And Krista, I look forward to a future collaboration with us in the very, very near future.
All right.
It's a pleasure meeting you both.
Thanks for having us.
You're very
Thank you for
welcome.
having us.
You're very welcome. And good luck to the both of you, and looking forward to seeing you and working with you and hearing you in the future.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care now, everybody. That's Email and Coffee. Happy email marketing, you all.